Good day to you all and welcome. My name is John Dockrell and this is Edward Dixon. Today we will compare both the Angkor and Han empires with consideration of Charles' 10-point model traits. The Kingdom of Angkor 802 AD to 1450 AD existed over 500 years after the demise of the Han Empire, 206 BC to 220 AD. And although there are clear examples based on what qualifies a civilization as a state, as we shall see, not all attributes were met. Chang'an is located northwest of Xi'an. Chang'an City was the capital of the western former Han dynasty. During its 3,100 years of development, 12 dynasties such as the Zhou, Qin, Han and Tang held Chang'an as their capital. It sits on an ancient site atop layers of early Chinese cities of different names, both beneath and around it. The land there is quite fertile. It's renewed yearly by the silt from the Yellow River. And both nomadic and farming people actually enjoyed that relatively flat landscape, the ready water and ease of travel.
At its peak, the Angkor state controlled an empire consisting of most of Southeast Asia, to the west and southwest including much of Thailand and Myanmar, parts of Laos to the north and part of what is now Vietnam to the east. The centre of its power lay in the Angkor Plains area on the northern side of Lake Tonle Sap.
Lasting over 400 years, the Han dynasty is divided into three historical periods. 1. The Western or former Han, 206 BC to AD 9, when the capital is located to the west of Chang'an, near modern Xi'an, Shaanxi province. 2. Followed by the Jing dynasty, an interval by the usurper Wang Man, 9 to 24 AD, and concluding with the Eastern or latter Han, 25 to 220 AD, when Liu Imperial House was re-established and the capital moved east to Luang in Henan province.
Prior to the Angkor state, the kings were involved in feudal warfare. With the arrival of the Angkor state, the warring factions were unified under one sovereign leader. With the gradual rise in power of Angkor, the borders of the new state increased as wars were fought with neighbours and new territory was claimed as part of Angkor. The vassal states were required to pay tribute to the king of Angkor. The Angkor state was a domestic economy of subsistence agriculture and fluctuating international economy based on trade with India and China. It was a period that saw the rise of Angkorian art and the construction of many monumental brick and sandstone buildings reflecting Hindu and Buddhist influences. There were wars and forced acquisition of lands and slaves. Parts of Thailand and southern Laos were made tribute-paying vassals of Angkor. There was no official currency. Angkor used exchange equivalents in gold, silver, rice, cloth, cattle, and/or slaves.
Emerging from the warring states, Liu Bang had been a minor official of the Qin dynasty, 221 to 206 BCE. The Qin dynasty was very short and cruel. By the time it had collapsed, Liu Bang had raised an army and claimed the vacant throne. He was not the only one in the quest for power. One of his most important opponents was a general named Xiang Yu, also known as Xiang Ji. We are told that Xiang Yu captured Liu Bang's father and sent him a final warning, assuring that his father would be boiled alive unless Liu Bang surrendered. Liu Bang's answer suggests that he did not get along very well with his father, so send him a cup of the soup.
Angkor possessed a large and powerful army and a non-ocean going navy force, which was at times aided by neighbouring allied forces. Hinduism was adopted and later the introduction of Buddhism sects. Hierarchical caste system based on Hindu model, later Buddhism gave more power to individual citizens. Polygamy was practiced by rulers, including marrying women from vassal states to maintain powerful alliances. Powerful temple estates were governed by elite priest class.
While Qin began to bring China into order for the first time, it was Emperor Gaozu who truly unified her. While drawing on lessons learnt from the collapse of the Qin and the former dynasties, the second emperor, or Emperor Gaozu, can be credited with many great cultural achievements. The recruiting of people for his government was based on their ability, not their birth nor their wealth, and at the same time he adopted policies of giving the people peace and security.
Angkor from 802 AD was ruled and governed by King Jayavarman II, who proclaimed himself as universal ruler. Angkor changed at this stage from separate feudal warring kingdoms into one nation ruled by one sovereign. Angkor kings prioritised construction of major infrastructure including irrigation canals and reservoirs, grandstone monuments such as temples, palaces, libraries and hospitals. They also built many roads and bridges.
The Western Han under Emperor Gaozu began with a period of political consolidation, building on the centralized administrative institutions and legal system of statutes and ordinances inherited from the Qin dynasty. Within the structure of central and provincial governments, a civil service system was instituted that emphasized the learning of the Confucian classics and other texts as means for testing candidates for office. Emperor Gaozu recruited only qualified and capable people for his government while abolishing cruel laws put in place by the Qin dynasty. The imperial Chinese bureaucracy launched during the Han dynasty remained virtually intact as an institution until the 19th century. Local officials reported to central officials in the capital, and they in turn reported to the emperor. Even a postal system was set up in 206 BC to connect the empire and inform the imperial court of happenings throughout Han China. A network of roads was also established, and this expedited the communication and helped with tax collection.
As Angkor developed in power and strength, it amassed a large military force. The Angkor army was composed of local populace, allies and slaves. They used elephants and bronze weapons in battle. The navy was used for battles on or near rivers and transporting troops. Alliances with neighbouring vassal states also occurred from time to time.
From the archaeological records of Angkor Palace, Chang'an, we can see that there was an arsenal nearly 1 kilometre in length. That leads us to believe that there must have been quite a sizable standing army at all times. In Western Han, if you were male, 22 years of age, you were obligated to join the military, or you were conscripted. The military forces of the Han dynasty used the most advanced forms of weaponry during that time. Swords were a favoured weapon, and improvement in iron casting during the Han period made it possible for them to produce stronger swords. Improvements were also made to the traditional crossbow, making it more accurate and more powerful, and the army began to adapt stirrups to gain greater balance riding horses. The power of the Han dynasty military meant that they were able to push back many of the enemies of China, and even enable the kingdom to spread its influence over large areas across Asia, which also opened the gates for trading.
Angkor and surrounding areas contained a highly developed city of up to 1 million people at its peak. The city was created over the generations and had many massive monumental stone buildings, reflecting the magnificence and wealth of a mighty state. Extensive irrigation canals and reservoirs supplied the city and farmland with water all year round.
We have Angkor State, the power centre on the left, and we have Angkor Palace of Chang'an on the right. Both of these sites show a high level of complexity and are quite well organised.
Building materials at Angkor include laterite, which is an iron-rich clay that's relatively soft when cut out of the ground, deeply pitted and easy to create building blocks from. When it's exposed to the sun and air, it becomes very hard. It was often used in foundations and building cores. Sandstone was also used. It was quarried in the Kulin Mountains about 50 kilometres northeast of Angkor. Sandstone, being soft, allowed for fine decorative carving and was used for bas-relief decorative panels. By the end of the 10th century, the Khmers built almost exclusively in sandstone. Kiln-fired bricks were also used. These were bonded with vegetable compound instead of mortar, resulting in strong construction with almost invisible joins. Decorations on the bricks were usually made with stucco. The early temples were built of brick because it was easiest to use, while stone, which required more manpower and greater skills, made a gradual appearance. Wood was used for palaces, houses and monks' accommodation. It was also used for temple roofs, pavilions and pagodas. Paint. The surfaces of Khmer temples were painted and faint traces of paint remain today.
According to the archaeological materials and results of excavations, the city walls of Chang'an City were all constructed with yellow earth. With a height of 12 metres and width of 12 to 16 metres, the walls were protected by a 3-metre deep moat. This was as wide as 8 metres. According to excavation results, there were altogether 12 big gates and 36 smaller ones, and the two numbers were in accordance with historical records. Generally speaking, there were more than 88,000 permanent families living in the city of Chang'an, with a total population of over 240,000, making it one of the biggest and most prosperous cities in the world at that time.
Monumental buildings of the Angkor state included important elements such as the Prasat. Prasat is a tower structure that reproduces the cosmic mountain, the dwelling place of the gods that links the sky, earth and the underworld. Representing a mountain, the temple is an almost totally solid mass with a small dark cavity which is square, the form that represents the perfection in Hindu and Khmer geometric symbolism. The exterior of the Prasat usually consists of 4 progressively diminishing levels. The Prasat never touches the ground but stands on a platform with 1 or 4 access stairways. In the Angkor state, international trade was mainly with China and India. Exports included rice, elephants, ivory, rhinoceros horn, feathers, beeswax, lacquer, spices including pepper and cardamom, and wood. The imports were paper, metal goods including bronze, porcelain, silk and wicker.
Trade was conducted from Asia to Europe, passing through China, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, Turkey, Greece and Italy. Chinese regions along the route included Shaanxi, Gansu, Xinjiang, Xinjiang, although it was not until Emperor Wu's wars that assured safe trade routes and the establishment of the Great Silk Road. Emperor Wu also sent emissaries and trade missions to many countries and established foreign trade. The biggest products in the Han economy were iron, salt, copperwork and silk. Merchants were generally not respected, and laws were made to make merchants wear white clothes and pay high taxes, although they were able to become rich, especially with trade improving due to that Silk Road and general peace in the country.
From the early period of the Angkor state, Hinduism was the primary religion. It was a caste-based hierarchical religion. In Angkor, it focused on Vishnu and Shiva. With the reign of Jayavarman VII, Mahayana Buddhism came to prominence, while also coexisting with Hinduism. With the death of the king, Mahayana teachings were gradually replaced with Theravada Buddhism. In Angkor, Sanskrit, Pali and Khmer were the languages used. Sanskrit is an ancient Indo-Aryan language that was the liturgical language of Hinduism and Buddhism. It had great influence on religion and literature and was part of the cultural tradition. Pali is considered a Middle Indo-Aryan language, but has a simplified grammar. Religion and culture greatly influenced art and architecture in the Angkor state. Excavations by French archaeologist B.P. Groslier discovered cremation urns which contained bones and grave goods. The grave goods were pieces of lead, ceramics and bronzes. Other methods at Angkor, which were reported by the Chinese emissary Zhao Daguan in the 13th century, says that the bodies were kept on a kind of bamboo mat covered with cloth. It's taken out for the funeral and is preceded by banners, drums and music. The body is then carried out of town to a remote uninhabited spot where it is thrown down and left. After that, vultures, crows, dogs and other village animals come and eat it. If it's quickly consumed, it means that the father and mother of the dead person are blessed and so gain this reward. If it's not eaten or partly eaten, on the other hand, it means that the father and mother have come to this pass because of their wrongdoings. He also states that the kings were buried in the towers of the temples, but he did not know whether the complete body or defleshed bones were buried there.
Emperor Gaozu's Changlan Mausoleum was built during his lifetime and located at Hanlin Village, Yaodan Township, at the Weichang district. This is about 30 kilometres north of Xi'an City. The mausoleum was known as a longevity tomb and contained 6 horse-drawn carts, figures of tigers, leopards and other animals, gold, silver, jade and other precious objects such as silk cloth and grain, including other daily necessities. People of high status were moved to the site, creating Changlan County, a town to protect the tomb of Emperor Gaozu, and this practice continued with new counties emerging one after the other. Confucianism also played a very significant role in mortuary practice and tried to address the increasing competing acts of gift giving to the deceased, which can only be seen to increase one's status. In the writings of Yan Chia Lun, Debate over Sultanine, compiled in the middle of the Western Han period, the situation of grave goods or gifts was addressed, and he wrote, "In ancient times people served the living with love and buried the dead with grief. Therefore the wise made rules and ceremonies, not as empty formalities. People today cannot respect the living, they only vie with each other with luxurious gifts displayed in the funeral when their parents die."
The decline of the Angkor state occurred due to several causes: depletion of finances, costs of wars and monumental and infrastructure projects, the rise in power and independence of vassal states and wars of succession, failure and silting of the canal irrigation systems due to deforestation and flash floods, climate change, 5 to 6 years of drought followed by very wet monsoons, decrease of mean temperature by 5 degrees in 1430 AD, and finally the invasion and defeat of Angkor by the Siamese in 1431 AD.
The eventual decline of the Han dynasty also began with Emperor Wu's policy of selling land to private landholders. As a result, this created great inequality. He raised taxes on the poor working people, causing many of them to be displaced. The Han dynasty peaked under Emperor Zhao and Emperor Zhan, and during 73 BC to 33 BC, Emperor Yuan began to lose power to deal with the state affairs, and this occurred because he went against the principle of promoting people based on ability. He had actually chosen prominent Confucians who relied on astronomy and fortune-telling to fill government positions and as advisors. The Western Han ended with Liu Ying and the Country Revolution. Wang Mang seized the imperial throne 89 to 23 and changed the name of the dynasty to Jin. However, after a series of protests, the social rebellion became so serious that the rule of Wang Mang was overthrown, and this occurred by an uprising of peasants led by Liu Xiu, a royal of the Han, who was also trusted by the people. In 25 AD, Liu Xiu re-established the Han dynasty, now called Eastern Han, and made Luoyang the capital.
In conclusion, the Han Empire meets all child's elements for a state, and although Angkor did not meet all of the traits of the 10-point model, it's clearly a state as it meets the majority of the requirements of statehood. A comparison of the two states has now been completed. Thank you for your attention, and we now open for questions.